This is the weekly sales meeting for June 23rd, 2024. My name is Chris Fleming. You can reach me at chris@cdmediaconsulting.com or go to our website at cdmediaconsulting.com. Today's topic, sales velocity. They said there would be no math in this job, but I have turned the whole thing into one big math problem. There is an equation for every selling scenario. They also told me there would be no science, but science can give us some answers to basic sales problems. Some of those scientific principles include inertia, momentum, and velocity. You could make an equation to represent what we do for a living and how we go about achieving our goals. Because these are scientific principles, they are the laws of the land. And because we are human, output variables depend on how hard we want to work to make it happen. But to be sure, nothing happens if we do not put in the work. The first scientific principle at work is the principle of inertia. This property of matter describes an object's resistance to change in its state of motion. In simpler terms, inertia is the tendency of an object to remain at rest if it is already at rest, or to continue moving in a straight line at a constant speed, that is, if it's already in motion, unless it is acted upon by an external force. For our benefit, we could look at it like this. If we stop working, it is easy for us to stay at rest than to exert the effort to restart. The same is true when we are busy. It is easier to stay in motion if we are already in motion, all because it takes extra effort to slow down or stop. Why then would we ever slow down or stop? Sir Isaac Newton most famously articulated the concept of inertia. This was after he was struck in the head by an apple. He had an epiphany. Call it the first law of motion. This law states an object at rest stays at rest, and an object in motion stays in motion with the same speed and in the same direction unless acted upon by an unbalanced external force. This means an object will not change its motion, either remain still or keep moving, unless a force causes it to do so. The amount of inertia an object has is directly related to its mass. The greater the mass, the greater the inertia, thus the greater the resistance to change in motion. Our momentum can continue to carry us if we are already moving. The same anti-momentum can work against us if we do not put ourselves in motion. Velocity is a vector quantity. It describes the rate at which an object changes its position. It includes both the speed of the object and the direction in which it's moving. This is where displacement is the change in position of the object. Unlike speed, which is a scalar quantity, it only considers how fast the object is moving. Velocity considers the direction of the movement. For instance, if a car is traveling north at 60 miles per hour, its velocity is 60 miles per hour north. If it changes direction but maintains the same speed, its velocity changes due to the change in direction. Momentum is a fundamental concept in physics. It describes the quantity of motion an object has. It has both size and direction. The formula for momentum is mass times velocity. If we start with inertia, we can understand that motion and action lead to success. Inertia is the reason a stationary object does not spontaneously start moving, or a moving object does not stop or change direction without a force acting upon it. The amount of inertia we have is proportional to our mass. That is either how big we are or how big we act. When we have more mass, we have greater inertia. It is harder for bigger objects to move or change directions than smaller ones. Those with bigger accounts and account lists have a more difficult time changing course. It could explain why seasoned pros have a more difficult time adapting to change. It takes a Herculean effort to change course. Those with less experience or smaller account lists are more adaptable. It takes less input effort to drive change. It is also the reason why when we stop for long periods, it is harder to get restarted. Momentum is the quantity that expresses our motion. It is calculated as the product of its mass and velocity. Here, mass is the measure of inertia, and velocity is our speed in a given direction. Momentum is a vector quantity, so it has both size and direction, and this momentum builds on inertia. While inertia tells us that a mass resists change in its state of motion, momentum quantifies this motion. When we are moving, momentum reflects how difficult it would be to stop us. The greater the mass, and thus the inertia, the higher the velocity. This means the greater the momentum. When we have our whole operation moving in a general direction with momentum, it is very difficult to slow us down. When it comes to a grinding halt, the opposite is true. It takes massive effort to restart this movement. Velocity is a key component of our momentum. It is defined as the rate in which we change our position. It is also a vector quantity. The variables are both speed and direction. When we talk about momentum, we are talking about velocity. Momentum is mass times velocity. Imagine a hockey puck sliding on ice. The puck's mass gives it inertia. It resists changes to its state of motion. When a player hits the puck, a force is applied. This force overcomes the puck's inertia. This is what causes it to move. This motion results in velocity. The puck's momentum is the product of its mass and this new velocity. If we delve deeper, we see that changes in velocity, acceleration, occur due to applied forces. The rate at which velocity changes depends on the force applied, and it depends on the mass of the object. This is described in Newton's second law of motion. Newton's second law of motion states the force acting on an object is directly proportional to the acceleration of the object, and it is inversely proportional to its mass. It is here we get the equation for force. According to the second law of motion, force equals mass times acceleration. When a force acts on an object, it changes the object's velocity over time. This is what it takes to change your momentum. The greater the force, or the longer it is applied, the greater the change in momentum. Because objects resist changes to their motion, the momentum within a closed system does not change without an external force. Thus, the velocity of objects adjusts to such a way that the total momentum remains constant. Understanding the relationship between inertia, momentum, and velocity has practical implications. In sports, it helps athletes optimize their performance, knowing how much force is needed to change their speed or direction. In selling, we don't often calculate the amount of effort it will take for us to change course. Inertia, momentum, and velocity are interlinked concepts that describe and govern motion. Inertia is the inherent resistance to change in motion due to mass. Momentum is the product of an object's mass and velocity. It quantifies how much motion it has and how difficult it is to change that motion. Velocity is the speed of the object in a specific direction. Through the application of force, inertia leads to changes in velocity. This creates and modifies momentum. Understanding these relationships allows us to predict and manipulate our selling motion. Inertia, momentum, and velocity are all scientific principles. The practical application of these principles can give us a calculation we call sales velocity. This is the measurement of the speed at which we generate revenue from our sales activities. It reflects how sales move through the pipeline and how they turn into revenue. Sales velocity helps us understand the efficiency and effectiveness of our sales teams or sales franchises. The formula to calculate sales velocity involves 4 key components. They are the length of the sales cycle, the number of opportunities, your average deal size, and your win rate. This formula will calculate your sales velocity. First, look at your total number of sales opportunities in a given period. These are not names on a list, but actual qualified prospects. Next, look at your average deal size. Take your total number of qualified presentations and divide by the number of qualified leads. Now consider your win rate. If you have 10 qualified presentations, how many will you win? Own this number. This is your batting average. Then look at the time it takes for each deal to close. By combining these factors, it will reveal your sales velocity. This provides a clear picture of how fast revenue is being generated. Higher sales velocity indicates a more efficient and productive sales process. It allows the company to generate revenue faster. Understanding and optimizing sales velocity can help businesses improve their sales strategies. It is a big driver of growth. Understanding how inertia, momentum, and velocity coexist help us grasp the principles of physics that govern motion. These concepts are intertwined. Each plays a critical role in describing how sellers move and interact. Our rate and effectiveness of movement will determine our sales efficiency. What else can you do to increase your sales efficiency? Try understanding your customers' needs. Great discovery calls are one thing. The ability to profile and project your ideal customer is an even better time saver. The more you can eliminate time wasters, the more it helps sales velocity. Stop calling on people who have no intention of doing business with you. Learn to spot the time wasters early on. Pursue more ideal customers. Talk less, listen more. This is one of those duh moments, but many get nervous on calls. When we are nervous, some talk. Throwing up on your customers does not make a business relationship. Ask more questions about pain points. Explore these areas and develop these conversations. This gives you both insight into your customer's business and leverage points to close the sale. That is, after you've made an effective presentation. Remember to listen more than you talk. As Mark Twain told us, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use this as the mathematical relationship between listening and talking. Follow up and follow through. I call these FUs. There is a fine line between persistent follow-up and stalking. The customer will let you know when you cross it. Until you have, keep at it, but have an effective technique. Use one that references those pain points. They are the ones revealed in the discovery. Address these and draw a map. Years ago, the IBM Corporation used the acronym WIFM to describe their customer-focused approach. That stands for What's in it for me. If you are not answering those questions for your customers or prospects, you will find yourself with a disconnect. Create a sense of urgency. Not that you want to appear desperate, but you do want to show it is important. But do not throw up on your customers. If you find yourself using all the words on a sales call, that is a disconnect. When you use all the words, I call this word vomit. When we throw up everything we know on the customer, it leads to a lost sale. Same thing will occur if we do not give them enough attention. There's a fine line between stalking and apathy. In our customer-first society, sometimes the first to the cheese wins. When someone reaches out to you, respond with proper urgency. Momentum is a funny thing. Build your momentum with good habits. Schedule time to prospect. Yeah, that task. Schedule time for it daily. Call it blocking time to break through to people. Even times you might not think to be good could be good. Never rule out a day or time because you do not think it will be good. Vary your times of day, days of the week, early, late. Pour the coffee and make the calls. Make the calls before you start your routine. Make early morning calls. You can come in early. It's okay. You can pick up the phone. Funny thing about scheduling prospecting calls early is you might actually make them. Any time after 7:30 is fair game. Service professionals may start even earlier than that. Create good habits. Our goal is 10 presentations each week. Who gave 10 presentations last week? Who gave 5? What was the difference? What was the result? Build your schedule to be effective and efficient. Start with the basics. Building blocks. Start your day with the mundane. Make goods and paperwork. Get it out of the way. Then clock time for prospecting. Who fits with our station best? Which product category makes the most sense for us? When you identify these product categories, call on everyone in the category. 2 things will happen. You will find yourself having the same conversation, and second, you will get better at this conversation. You may even break through more often, and this will create sales velocity. My new book, 21st Century Sales Success, is now available on Amazon.com. If you like what you have heard here today, please consider ordering a copy or 2. You can always send one to a friend. Go to cdmediaconsulting.com right now and follow the instructions to order.